The Second Amendment. It is, after all, the Second Amendment. But America is slowly slipping away from its right to bear arms. An expert in guns and shooting is here today, Tom Hudson, and we'll talk about that live with Tom Coates on The View from a Pew.
Welcome to The View from a Pew, a conversation among Christians who are out to grow their faith by asking the simple questions, the tough questions, and the stuff you really wish your pastor would talk about. Come on now, let's reason together. It's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so join the conversation. Call 244-0077. That's 244-0077. Now, here's your host, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, welcome. It is the 25th day of August on the Lord's year 2015. We will date this show as you never know what may change in this country when it comes to guns and the rights that we have or don't have. We have a gentleman in the studio with us today, Tom Hudson, Hudson. He's a small businessman. Start out with that. I said expert in the opening. And his humility immediately grabbed me and said, no, I'm not an expert. I'm a small businessman. But you're passionate about gun rights and guns and people being taught correctly how to use firearms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry I said expert.
No, that's fine.
You're an expert to me. Anybody 30 miles outside of town is an expert to me. So, and he has a shooting range, which is in Johnston. And you can find all about it at crossroadsshooting.com. Now, you may say, oh, Mac, the last thing I want to do is go into a big room and shoot a gun at a target. That's not hardly what they do. They also train, sell, service. I know in the commercial that I heard the other day, you actually have a female instructor for women who would like to learn how to use a gun but doesn't want to be overlorded by some macho guy.
That's exactly right. I actually have 2 females on staff that do that for us.
All right. So if there's a female out there, and if she wants to learn from a guy, you can learn from a guy. That's okay. But I know that if I was a woman, would I want to learn from a guy? I probably have a stereotype in my head about guys and guns.
Yeah.
Because I know Tom, if Tom was teaching the girl, he'd just give her the gun and say, now act like that's your ex-husband and shoot. Right? No, you wouldn't.
That'd be one way to do it.
Now, Tom, I got 2 Toms here. So Tom Coates is also a gun enthusiast.
Well, again, I'm no expert, Tom, but I've had my permit to carry since I was in my teens. And I own guns and occasionally shoot, not so much as I used to, but I grew up hunting, and my brother and now my nephew have a gun shop down in Cordon where I grew up.
Oh yeah,
and they have a small gun store, and they've had it for many years. So I'm not, unknowledgeable about some of these things, but I'm certainly not as knowledgeable as you are, and you say you're not an expert, and I know more than Max, so I'm somewhere in between.
Everybody knows more than me on guns.
Yeah.
And didn't I recall a story that you shared with me once, sitting on your back porch smoking a cigar, and you live kind of on, there's a cornfield on the other side of you.
Yes.
Out in the country.
Yes.
And you saw, a raccoon?
Well,
Possum?
I've got a couple of raccoon stories that maybe I won't tell because they, but yes, I've eliminated a couple of raccoons in my time since I've lived there. One, yes, was like you said, and another one found its way in my dumpster at work.
Oh, yes.
And I had to eliminate that one, too.
Well, I just remember I got a text from you one night that said, just killed a possum or a raccoon or something in the backyard. Cigar smoke smells good.
Yeah.
Something like that. So
I have to take it a little easier. I only have rabbits to deal with at my house, so I have to save the heavy stuff for at work.
Oh, there you go. You don't shoot
I like
the rabbits,
but the raccoons can get kind of nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. And just so people know, I'm not a wuss when it comes to gun. I'm not afraid of guns. I've owned guns. I am not a hunter at all. I know I'm hypocritical because I love venison, and I love lamb, and I love burgers, and I love chicken, but I can't kill anything.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. In fact, my dog, Picasso, got a hold of a baby rabbit the other day, and I felt so bad. I buried it and said a prayer over it.
Well, Mac, if you were in, we're talking about Jimmy Carter because he's on his last legs now, but in his day, he had a killer rabbit come after him in a boat once, and I think, he had to defend himself with an oar. I think if you had a gun in your hand and a killer rabbit came after you like it did with Carter, I think you could probably find a way to put a bullet in it.
A killer rabbit?
That's what he said. You remember that story?
No, I don't. So, and my wife, I talked to you about this about a year ago. My wife has honestly said that she would like to learn how to use a gun. And CJ is anything but somebody who you'd think would hold a gun.
Yeah.
But she's also a pretty smart woman, and she would like to learn how to use one and to be able to defend herself.
Mac, the world's changing, and while we live in flyover country, it's just unfortunately a matter of time before something is going to happen in our own neighborhoods, which in fact it already has. Pleasant Hill last fall, the guy driving around at 6:30 in the morning decided to just start randomly shooting at people. There's been a few other isolated incidents here and there. I personally met a family this last weekend who had a home invasion happen to them in Grinnell just 10 days ago.
Oh my!
Violent home invasion, and an armed response stopped him. So there's a lot of folks that are just like you and your wife, where you're not super pro gun or to the point where you own them and you're a big gun nut. You're in the middle. You're not opposed, but you just don't really know what you want to do about it, how you want to embrace it, what you would want to do about it. And there's a lot of folks just like you all over in the metro in central Iowa, and that's kind of what we're there for.
Now, help me understand the law a little bit, because this is someplace I get a little sketchy. If I'm in my home and someone enters my home without permission and I shoot them, is that all right?
Well, that's a vague question yet still. Iowa has no stand your ground, nor do we have a castle doctrine law, which are the two case laws that or precepts that actually create a pretty categorical definition about what you can do in your home. Iowa does not have either one of those laws. Iowa has no provision to the right to defend ourselves per se in the Constitution, although we do have the right to defend life and protect property. So there's a lot of nuances as to whether someone walks in your home and you can shoot them, or the adage of just drag them back inside the threshold and everything will be okay. There's actually a lot of nuances to how that would work. So it's not really quite so cut and dried, unfortunately.
All right. And is the NRA or any state organization, maybe, Tom, this is a better question for you, is there any lobbying going on to create either, what do you call it, the castle or the...
Castle doctrine.
All right. And that's where inside my home, it's my home, and you
Correct.
have no right to come in here, and
Correct.
if you do, you might be shot.
Correct.
And what was the other one you said?
Stand your ground.
Okay, and that was a big thing in Florida.
Right,
Well,
with the
it's a big
Zimmerman
thing,
court.
Been a big thing here, too.
Right.
And there's been some lobbying. I think it's passed through the Iowa House. I think it's like a lot of things. Good legislation goes to the Iowa Senate with the Democrats in charge to die. And that there is a lot of pressure, I think, because Iowa's a pretty good percentage of Iowans own guns, and, and they take their gun rights seriously, and they do think a stand your ground law is essential, so that you take yourself out of this muddy area. The muddy area is now you got to spend a fortune in legal fees, maybe go through the criminal justice system to. All you're doing, Mac, is you're sleeping soundly one night and you hear a noise and you grab your gun and you go downstairs and somebody is rummaging through your stuff, and you don't know if he's armed, you don't know if he means you harm, and if he doesn't respond to your commands, you feel threatened, he comes at you and you shoot him. Now, what are you going to do? Stand your ground would help clarify that situation. But Mike Gronstall and some of the other knuckleheads in the Iowa Senate are not willing to go down that road, because their allegiance is to certain areas of the Democrat Party, and one of those is very opposed to gun rights. They would like to take my gun, you don't have one, your guns, they would like to restrict them in any way possible. And that's always been a bugaboo. So, yes.
And when I hear the government wants to restrict your guns, why is it that the next voice I hear in my head, which isn't allowed, but I hear it saying that's because one day they're going to take over? And they don't want you to be able to defend yourself. I think it says in the Second Amendment, a militia, a small militia.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of fear and concern. You can put a lot of different words on it depending on how high of a level you want to ratchet it up to, I believe. But I believe that there's a lot of concern that, generally speaking, in a socialistic state of living, which is something I think the Democratic Party generally likes to gravitate towards, that there's no business for some of these things. It's no different than the redistribution of wealth policy from a financial policy. There's a variety of different things that if we take this away and create an equal footing for all, then these are less things that we have to worry about. And so that's where gun control, if you will, or taking away guns, restricting access, restricting use, where these different things come into play. And here's the thing. Some of our most grievous attacks on the Second Amendment aren't even direct attacks on the Second Amendment per se. There's a variety of different ways that the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms, is being attacked. And we do have, you asked a question a minute ago about do we have anybody out there kind of on the forefront of this? And we do. We have the NRA, which is very, very politically active. We all know.
Oh yeah.
They have the legislative actions branch, and then there's also state and local organizations as well too. We've got a couple of different coalitions and organizations within the state that are trying to work on some of these things as well too. So we're not out there without advocates. But I think at the end of the day, it's what's most important to make it through the legislature, to Tom's point. And good legislation makes it, but then things, in this last case, it was the school year budget. The school budget came up, education budget, if I'm not mistaken, is what ended up taking over in those waning hours. And a lot of the firearms bills failed.
And all right, Tom Hudson is my guest. He owns a place called Crossroads Shooting Sports. It's in Johnston. And is this a brand new building, or is it a building someone would recognize?
Well, it's a building that's been there for about 10 years. We're just about 100 yards off Merle Hay on Johnston, the little cut across between Beaver and Merle Hay there on the lower end.
Yeah.
The building's been there a little over 10 years, but I think a lot of people have flown by it over the years. We actually sit just below the road grade level, so you just kind of zing right by the building. But we're a new business. We just opened in February.
So is that, if I'm going north and I go under the interstate, is that the first right up there, kind of catty corner where the big old horse used to be?
Well, I believe so. I don't have a deep history in that area myself, but if you turn right at Polly Ice Pizza or the Sonic gas station or the Sonic fast food, turn right there and head east. You go a couple hundred yards and we're on the right.
Okay.
You're not that far from us. Now, you have an indoor shooting range there?
We do. We opened up it's a 17,000 square foot facility. And we gutted the building and started from scratch, and we opened up a 17-lane indoor shooting range, a full pro shop, training center, video simulation system, lounge, big screen TVs, and a lot of gear.
Can you smoke cigars in there? Because if you can, he's there.
So there's three letters in the regulatory body for me: alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. The ATF. I kind of like to play with one letter at a time, Matt. Okay. So right now it's bullets only.
Okay.
Bullets only. No tobacco. No booze.
All right.
You don't want to serve cocktails and then let them shoot, huh?
No. and then go out for a nice Cuban after that. Yep. No.
Yeah. No.
We're not doing that yet.
I wouldn't be for mixing the booze, but I could see Tom with a big old cigar hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah.
And, wanting to shoot a target. Yes, sir.
Hey, you did hear there was a shooting range they were opening that was serving alcohol. Have you heard that in the news here recently?
There's actually several of those facilities have opened up around the country. There's one down in Oklahoma City, I believe, that has a restaurant, a cocktail bar, you name it. And now they claim to have a pretty good monitoring system that you shouldn't be mixing the two. But we ask if people have been drinking. We have at least 8 hours from bottle to bullet.
Well, that's a good idea. My brother worked in a very large one in Dallas for a while, and my brother that used to own the gun shop down in Corden, and they had a private lounge. In fact, they not only served alcohol, but they had smoked cigars and served food and everything else. But that's not cheap. I mean, those indoor courses are not cheap. So you've invested some money.
Yep.
And now, is this a private club? Do you have a dues-paying membership situation? What is it?
So we're a public facility. There are memberships.
I'm going to ask you to hold that.
You bet.
For just a second, because we're up against a hard break, and I think that's a long answer, and I want to hear more about it. Especially, I want to hear about your training, and can you be trained at your place for concealed weapon? And I don't know. I just don't know anything about this, and I want to talk about it. So I'm glad you're here today. Tom Hudson is our guest. CrossroadsShooting.com. CrossroadsShooting.com. That's where you can check it out right there on Johnston Drive. just north of 8035. We're coming back live here on The Truth on 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
Thank you very much. 21 minutes after the hour, 25th day of August. The reason we're dating this show, you may be listening to this or watching us on a podcast somewhere down the line. We're dating it because we're talking about laws and some current events. Our guest today is Tom Hudson. He's the owner and general manager of Crossroads Shooting, and that's .com, crossroadshooting.com in Johnston, Iowa. And it is our only indoor shooting range?
Correct, only indoor shooting range in the metro.
In the metro, all right. And just open, and we'll hear more about it. But we're really talking about, gun rights and the Second Amendment and a lot of stuff like that. And who better to ask than a guy who does that for a living? Now, Tom, I want to switch to you. Tom Coates is here. I got too many Toms. Tom, I want to switch to you for a minute and talk to me about what's going on with the stock market.
Well, and I don't know, you and I maybe haven't had this discussion much on the air. I've talked to a lot of the people about it. Now, what I've been saying, Mac, for some time is that the stock market is maybe the only thing that has been punched up in recent years. In fact, we've had almost an unabated 6-year run up in the stock market. We've taken them to levels that I think are unsustainable given the economics. It used to be the stock market was an indicator of the health of the economy. It hasn't been since the Federal Reserve came in years ago and started doing all of the easing, the zero interest policies, trillions of dollars almost mainlined into the veins of the stock market, and I think it's a big bubble. And when you see on the front page of the Des Moines Register and USA Today, things like I saw this morning, in essence, don't worry, be happy, buy the dips, it's only going to go higher, that should be an indication to you that this isn't the normal thing. In recent years, anytime it's taken a small dip, you buy it and you make out on it. 6 years unabated in a bull market. I think, if you want to know my opinion, you're asking it, is I think the bull died and it's converted into an angry bear.
Okay.
And with the bull market, any dip you buy and you get brought out of it. If you're in an angry bear, as I think we are now and will be for a while.
How long is a while? Months?
Well, I'm thinking a few years.
Okay.
And what I'm thinking is the Federal Reserve still has some power, but not as much as they did. The idea that we're going to raise interest rates, like I've been talking about, I think that's out the window. I thought so for quite a while. I don't think they can raise interest rates. If they do, look out. Also, I think you're going to start hearing some talk about the next area of easing, be quantitative easing 4. What in a bear market you do, and even if you've got just mutual funds in a retirement, you have to start thinking, okay, if this thing really gets ugly in the next couple of years, like I think it could, do I want to take some protection? Do I, on the rally that we're seeing like today, do you start selling some of those mutual funds and getting yourself into government instruments, treasury bills, T-notes, bonds, that kind of thing that's showing some safety and a small bit of return, but not much, and getting to the sidelines? Because in a bear market, you sell rallies, you don't buy dips. Because if this is the sucker rally that I'm thinking it is, and it could last for weeks or even matter of days, the next leg down takes you lower, and then all of a sudden, oh, look out. This isn't the normal thing. Because I think we're in a different situation. Yeah, China figures in. China was part of the pin that stuck in here. I don't have time to go into a lot of detail, but the devaluation of the yuan that happened recently, they had a tight peg to the U.S. dollar, and the dollar's been too strong. They cut their interest rates today, if you saw. So the Chinese are slowing down. They can't sustain 6 to 7% annual growth, and they are slowing down dramatically. And they have bought the basic commodities, everything from iron ore to coal to copper to crude oil. They've been the driving force in the world, and they're no longer buying like that. And so countries like Australia, Canada, others that export a lot of their basic goods are in a world of hurt now because their big buyer is coming off the market. Europe's certainly not going to do it, and we're all tied together. We're interconnected. For good or ill, and I think
it's a global economy.
That's right, and it's ill now, and you're not going to see China slow down. Europe can't recover. You're not going to see us stand out as the lone ranger on this. So our economy, instead of accelerating, we haven't been in an inflationary environment. We've been in a deflationary environment, which is why the Fed has tried hard to stimulate inflation, and they've been unable to do it.
I heard somebody last night, I don't know, MSNBC, CNN, someplace, where a supposed expert basically said, I've talked to all the big dogs and nobody knows what to do. And he says that's when you get scared, when even the big dogs don't know what to do.
Yeah. I think some of the smart money has moved to the sidelines. The scared money goes into bonds, and it even went into gold for a while. Gold came back down today. You are seeing crude oil as an example.
Oh, my gosh, $40
Not long ago,
a
it
barrel.
was $60 a barrel. Now it's under 40.
Yeah.
You are seeing copper, which was bumping at $3 a pound. It's down more like to $2.25 a pound now. So basics like that and many other things I could point to are indicating that the economy is continuing to slow down. We still have deflation. That deflation probably doesn't end cyclically until at least next year, and I'm betting the stock market will not stand up against that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be careful, as I'm suggesting, you use rallies to lighten up on stocks that you have or mutual funds. You get into some safety, and you sit this one out. This is not one to, like the newspapers all said, don't be scared, be happy, buy these dips. This is what you ought to be doing. This is another opportunity. It's an opportunity to get your head handed to you.
Hey, Tom, did you hear Hillary's plan to further...
I was at the fair Sunday.
Hold on. He doesn't have his headphone there, so you'll have to wait.
Okay.
Okay, let me just throw this story out. And an unusual thing happened. A lot of times you've been out with me, people come up and they'll recognize me from the TV commercials, and they'll come up and want to talk about it. This guy came up. I was sitting there with my wife at a picnic table there in the middle of the fair eating a turkey tender, and he was very polite and a very clean shaven, nice-looking fellow with a young family. Came over, and he said, I really enjoy listening to you on the radio. And I don't get that experience as much as I do the TV, but I said, you talking about Mac's show? Yeah, Mac's show. He said, I listen to that, listen to you all the time on there. So
Good.
a nice-looking family man came up and complimented us on our radio show.
Good. That's nice to hear. Now, well, see, next time our producer will make sure the headphones are here.
Hey, Mac, just mention to Tom if he heard Hillary's plan to further tax the stock market yesterday.
Did you hear anything about Hillary attacking the stock market?
No, I didn't, Frank. What did she say?
Well, we'll have to get you a set of headphones. They're right down there and get you plugged in.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm interested because...
Wanting to further tax the stock market.
Further tax the stock market.
That is good.
Well, they have all
Are
their
you
money.
being serious, Frank? You pulling my leg?
Yeah.
She wants to raise capital gains. We've already got some of the highest capital gains and corporate taxes in the free world, and she wants them higher.
All right. Well,
O'Reilly said last night he's going to pull all his money out of the stock market because she's wanting to do something on she's wanting to force people into some long-term thing or something, and it's O'Reilly says he's pulling his money out because it's not worth the risk.
Well, China thought they could control their stock market too. When their stock market going up is fine, but when it started going down, they outlawed short selling and forbid many of the people from selling stocks. So that's working out real well for them.
Yeah, not really. All right. Well, it was interesting because during the break, my other guest, Tom Hudson, you were talking about how the current economic situation in this country of dividing the rich from the poor and the have-not is happening in gun ownership. Now, how is that happening?
Well, I think that there's it hasn't been a secret since coming out of the 07-08 recession. I heard it in my previous career in publishing and advertising that we really went into a two-speed recovery, and there was the haves and the have-nots in the recovery since 07-08. And I think that the haves and the have-nots has only grown. The gap has only broadened. And widened, and what that's created is the rich are richer and the poor are poorer, and the middle class is shrinking, right? We hear all these things economically, depending on which side of the political aisle you may be on. They want to exploit that kind of one way or another. But this is another attempt. This is another opportunity where gun ownership, for example, is not necessarily declining, but they're making it so this right is more unaffordable to do for those that are struggling to pay the bills. So gun ownership and shooting, going out and shooting bullets, getting .22 ammunition, all those kinds of things, going and plinking cans on the farm on the weekend is becoming less of an opportunity for some because of the economics of making it happen with disposable income.
Well, I've heard one of the things that the government's doing is you may not think they're attacking your gun rights, but they're certainly attacking your ammunition rights. There seems to be a very large increase in ammunition lately, and some ammunition isn't available anymore.
Well, generally since, so the fall of 2013, I believe it was, in the Sandy Hook incident, immediately after that, the ammunition market just seized completely. There was a huge run on the market, and supply stocks just seized, largely because production chains were not set to really supply the distribution well. Since that point in time, really most calibers have come back in. There are some calibers that are still tough to find, but I just heard today, though, that there are a couple of other popular calibers are once again starting to become tough in the market to find. Production's running down, that kind of thing. So, there's a lot of different ways that the Second Amendment or the right to keep and bear arms is being affronted at.
So do you subscribe to the theory that the government was buying up a lot of the ammunition and that made things further scarce? What you give much credence to that?
There was, so in the spring of 2014, there was a theory out there that the Department of Homeland Security had just made an allocation purchase of however many tens of millions of rounds of 9mm specifically, and that was one of the things that weighed down on the market, where they tend to buy in year groups, so 3 to 5 years at a time. The government buys, and then they'll go into a lull of routine purchasing. And I think some of that was just cyclical in the market to go with the timing of everything else. It's no different than getting a hurricane during full moon and you have a higher tide. So I think some of those things were occurring in some of that. But the conspiracy theory, especially while the Democrats are in control, there's never a shortage of conspiracy theories when it comes to Second Amendment and the Democrats.
Is there a proper way to store ammunition for its shelf life?
You know, ammunition can be good for a number of years, decades even in some cases. You want it to be cool and dry. That's really the key. So if you have ammunition, you can put it in your basement. You can put it in an ammo can. Someplace that is maybe not, it's not subject to the extremes, highs and lows. So a garage is not a good spot.
I was going to say garage, attic, that would be good.
No highs and lows of temperature or humidity. So in Iowa, keep it in your basement, throw a couple of dust kit bags in there from the boxes of shoes you got for back to school, and you'll be good to go.
Okay.
All right.
I've got an ammo box, military ammo box is, airtight sealed.
Yep.
And I keep it, my ammunition down in the basement.
Yep, that'll be good.
Hopefully it's still good. I've had it a long time.
I mean, literally decades can be good.
How do you know if it's good or if it's dangerous?
Well, you can first visually look for anything that may be indicated. If you see any corrosive nature to the round, to the ammunition itself, then you definitely wouldn't want to use it if there's anything like that. But other than that, if it's physically intact and you don't see any visible degradation of the ammunition itself, most likely it's going to be fine. After literally decades, you may see some reduced velocity, maybe some increased smoke or other contaminants or pollutants coming out of it, but it's going to go bang, most likely. It'll go bang and do the right thing.
All right, two guests today. My co-host, of course, is Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America and Consumer Credit of Des Moines. My other guest is Tom Hudson. He is the owner and manager of CrossroadsShooting.com. It's an indoor 17-lane gun shooting range in Johnston, Iowa. And we'll talk more about that as we go along and talk about some of the stuff that's going on with the Second Amendment and your right to bear arms. We're coming back live here on The Truth, 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
All right, thanks a lot. 22 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News at 3 o'clock, and then the Steve Dace live back in Afternoon Drive in his hometown, 3 to 5 every afternoon right here on The Truth, 99.3. My co-host today, of course, is Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. Just a plethora of information on economics and stocks and bonds and investing. I mean, that's really your hobby besides your grandkids.
You're right. Yeah, I've got a few hobbies, and that is one.
Yeah.
We've talked about some of the others. Yes.
Well, we won't talk about that. And my special guest today is Tom Hudson, who's the owner of CrossroadsShooting.com. Now, Crossroads Shooting is a 19,000 square foot shooting facility. What is that? What you call it? Shooting facility?
Yeah, indoor shooting range.
All right, 17 lanes plus a pro shop where you can buy guns and you can also be trained on guns. Now, give me an idea of the economics. If I come in and I own my own gun and I've got my own ammunition, is it sold by the hour?
No, actually, we're to come in there and rent a lane. It's a day fee. It's a day pass fee. So it's $19.99 for the first person to come in and rent a lane. So picture going to a golf course or going to a bowling alley, if you will. Same idea. And so if you've got all your own equipment, come in, $20 plus tax, and you can shoot as long as you want if we're not busy. And if we are busy and we have a waiting line, we ask people to limit their shooting to an hour, hour and a half period of time.
Now, what if I want to bring my grandson with me or I want to bring somebody with me?
Absolutely encourage that. We're set up for families specifically. Bring your grandson, have a good time. We can accommodate him. Shooting a long gun if he's under 14 in Iowa. Only have to be 14 and above to shoot a handgun in Iowa. But
he's over 14.
Yep. So that's Iowa law.
He belongs to that. He shoots for Ankeny.
Yeah, at probably the Scholastic program at Ankeny High School.
The skeet shooting, is that what it's called?
Yeah, there's a skeet program, I believe, up there. Yeah, very popular in the high schools. Is shotgun trap and skeet shooting in the high schools.
Yes, that's what he does.
Yep, very popular in the high schools in Iowa.
Yeah, all right. So I don't own any guns. I don't own any bullets. I just want to come out and shoot.
Yep, you can do that. We rent guns, too. We've got about 45 different guns in the rental counter. Everything from a little .22 revolver all the way up to a big .50 caliber Desert Eagle. Which was designed pretty much to put holes in Palestinian tanks, I believe. It's an Israeli.
You ever shot a Silver Eagle?
No, I have not.
The
most powerful handgun I ever shot that was the 44 Magnum, the old Dirty Harry gun years ago.
Yep.
This gun is unbelievable. Silver. They all chrome?
Well, no, just that particular. The Silver Eagle is specifically chromed out, but ours is just ours is black.
All right, and I'm a pretty fat guy. So I got a little comfortable. That thing almost knocked me on my behind.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I got a buddy of mine, Army Brad, who every once in a while will take me out to, I don't know where we go. It seems like we go to Canada. We drive for several hours and go out to this farmhouse and every kind of gun you can imagine. And as much as I don't like guns, I sure enjoy that. What is it about a guy and guns? Or is it just, it's not guys anymore?
Well, it's not guys anymore. You know, you mentioned the top of the show about females and us having female staff. Actually, it is a male-dominated sport industry without any doubt about it, like many of them are. But the female segment's the fastest growing segment of the sport shooting industry. And whether it be, and very specifically, young single professional females that are out wanting to either take this up as a hobby or for self-protection purposes. Defense. Yeah, exactly.
And you teach those courses.
We do.
All right. And when you teach those courses, you teach me or a female, doesn't matter. Let's talk about me. You teach me how to properly shoot how to care for my gun. Obviously, you'd go through the rules and the laws, so I was very understanding of what they are. Now, what if I wanted to... All right, so to own a gun, what do I have to have in Polk County or Iowa or whatever?
Well, so Iowa participates in the federal handgun, the Brady bill, what's called a partial. So for a handgun in Iowa, you have to go to your county sheriff and request and pay for and complete an application to purchase a handgun. A permit to acquire, specifically, is what it's called in Iowa.
Okay.
You do that through your local county sheriff. You do that, you get your permit to acquire for a handgun, then you can go into a retailer and buy a gun.
All right. But then, if I want to carry that gun, I need to get a
permit to carry.
Permit to carry.
Correct. So in Iowa, you have to also have a permit to carry for a handgun. None of these, the permit to purchase and the permit to carry do not apply to a long gun in Iowa, though. So a rifle or shotgun, these laws do not pertain to, but they do for a handgun. And so the permit to carry, it's very, very simple. This is another area where our law is very ambiguous at best. And so, but you have to go and get industry approved training. And then
which we give,
okay. And then you can take that training certificate back to your county sheriff and apply for your permit to carry. And then that gives you the ability to carry a gun, a handgun specifically, in the state of Iowa.
Unless the place you're walking into has a sign that says no weapons.
Correct. So the permit to carry rule in Iowa, there's several exemptions, obviously. School zones, state-owned property, so you can't go down to Yankee Doodle Pops and carry on the state grounds during 4th of July. And then also private establishments, if they have a no handgun policy and they choose to exercise that right as a business, then you're actually breaking the law by having a firearm on their premise.
And that's a misdemeanor, I would assume. But if you use it, then it's a big trouble.
Well, if you used it, it would probably be because there was something bad happening. Well, let's take Regal Mark Cinemas, for example, that are now taking their handbag examination law rule to the extreme. But let's say if you were in whatever store that says no guns allowed, and you had a gun and you chose to break their rule by going in there to patronize their shop anyways, and then something bad happened and caused you to be in threat of your life, and pull that gun out and use that gun, then this is where our laws in Iowa get messy, because you're in between a lot of things going on here. The right to protect and defend your life and your property, but on grounds that said it was illegal.
Yeah. Hey, Tom, why isn't our military, Tom Hudson or both Toms, why isn't our military allowed to be armed in these situations where they're not on a military base, they're in a recruitment center or something, and somebody comes in and starts shooting up? Why aren't they allowed to be armed?
This is interesting. We can entrust an 18-year-old young man with $1 million worth of equipment halfway around the world to defend the political, aspirations and the economic best interests of the United States, what our military does best and what we have the best military in the world trained to do. But you put that young man back at home, up here at Camp Dodge as a National Guard guy, and he's completely defenseless. There's a lot of elements we'd have to kind of peel back there. Are you talking about a federal military installation, a state installation such as the National Guard, where you have state control and federal oversight? Do you have the recruiting centers outside, which are actually an Army Corps of Engineer contracted facility of a private establishment? So there's a lot of elements to that onion to peel back there, a lot of petals there to get into.
And these are all things that the government does to make it harder to legally own and use a gun.
Yep, absolutely. And there's a lot of different things. They're all different things. And, the military is just a good example why the left hand and the right hand, when it comes to some of our decisions and policies, with not a lot of brain in between, making the decisions there on what we can, like I said, have them operating a, expensive piece of equipment overseas, but nothing in their backyard.
Now, over in Israel, where, of course, they're surrounded by enemies, but they not only have it as an opportunity, they have it as an obligation that their military people carry both on and off duty. Mm-hmm. There was a picture I saw the other day of two fairly attractive young women in bikinis on the beach that actually had their AK-47s or whatever they use over there slung over their backs. And so
sure you were looking at the guns, Tom. Sure you were.
So they get it because they're up against it, and we need to take a little page from their book.
All right, we're going to take our last break here and come back. We're talking with Tom Hudson, who's the owner of Crossroads Shooting, which is on Johnston Drive, just north of 8035. And you can find out all about it at crossroadshooting.com, especially the lessons, the training. I'm glad to know this because, my wife wants to get a gun. And so now I know I can go to one place and get all that done. I just got to go to the sheriff first. All right, we'll talk about that and more Second Amendment issues. You can call up and ask questions if you want. 1-515-244-0077 right here on The Truth.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can give these grandkids back, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We can help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, I'm J. Michael McCoy, and about 20 years ago, I went to a used car salesman by the name of John Hewitt. He had a little shop over there on North 2nd Avenue called John's Auto Sales, and I bought a car. I found that experience to be one that I had never had before from a used car salesman. He was honest, he was dependable, he had integrity, and he did what he said he was going to do. Well, over the years, between my kids and grandkids, I purchased 7 vehicles from John's Auto Sales. And last month, I asked him to be a sponsor. I can tell you about their huge selection. I can tell you about their years of experience. I can tell you about their honest integrity. But all I really need to tell you is that I bought 7 cars, and you can trust them. John's Auto Sales, 5435 2nd Avenue, Des Moines.
You need a good ride when you hit the trail. Trust the man with the cars, and he goes by the name of Big John. Big John. Big John.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
If you sit in the back pew or the front pew, it's your voice we want to hear. The phone lines are open, so call 244-0077. Now, here's J. Michael McCoy.
10 minutes before the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News at 3, and then at 3:03, the Steve Deace, back live in his hometown, right here in Afternoon Drive on 99.3. My guest today, Tom Hudson, who is the owner of Crossroads Shooting. You can find out more about that, crossroadshooting.com. Of course, my co-host Tom Coates in the house. And I was just rolling through Facebook here, and Police Chief James Craig of Detroit is encouraging his residents, his citizens, to pack guns because the crime rate in Detroit has drastically dropped since he has said, pack them, carry guns. Their mics aren't on.
They're usually the highest in the crime rate. So it is intuitive that if you have a higher rate of gun ownership, you'd have a lower rate of crime.
Right.
All right. Let's go to the phones where Craig is standing by. Craig, how are you?
Oh, pretty good. I don't know if it's actually a question, but maybe a statement that it said that, we have the right to have our guns, and he said it was the business's right to put a sign up saying we can't carry them there. I don't know if that's necessarily a right on their part, but also, if I could say, as far as us having the Second Amendment right to carry or have our guns, there shouldn't be anywhere in this country that we can't carry and have our weapons, pistols on our side or sealed preferably, because Second Amendment should trump every little thing that thinks or says that we cannot.
All right.
Do you agree with that? I mean,
so Tom, what I hear you saying, or not Tom, I'm sorry, Craig, what I hear you saying is that the government doesn't have any right, according to the Second Amendment, to stop us from carrying a weapon. Is that right?
Anywhere in the country. That should trump everything else.
But, Craig, thank you for calling, and thanks for listening. I appreciate it. But, Tom, that's not the way it is.
Well, it's not. And as a matter of fact, I'll use Iowa as an example. You have to go and get a permit to carry, to lawfully carry a handgun in the state of Iowa. However, there are areas in the state of Iowa that it's lawful for a citizen of Iowa to carry a gun without a permit. Now, they're largely very rural and spotty portions of our state, but nonetheless, you don't have to go get a permit to lawfully carry a handgun in Iowa in certain parts of Iowa.
And that's determined by the county sheriff.
The county sheriff, and so and at a state level. So there's no cut and dried place to say, well, at this latitude and longitude on your GPS, you're good and you're not, so it's very spotty at best.
What's the difference between a permit to carry and carry a concealed?
Well, there is no carry concealed permit in Iowa. The permit is a permit to carry a firearm or a weapon. There is no concealed carry permit in the state of Iowa. It's one permit and of the same. I'm showing you my permit right now in the studio, and if you look, it'll say permit to carry a weapon.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean gun, it means a weapon. This can be defined as brass knuckles, a variety of other knives over certain sizes. So I now have a permit to carry a weapon of what's classified as a weapon by Iowa code.
All right, now, to carry this, and I don't mean to get ridiculous here. I've proven to you for 50 minutes I'm ignorant on this. Could I look like John Wayne with a couple of holsters outside my jacket and just they're out there like that?
If you wanted to open carry, yes, you can open carry. If you have a permit to carry in the areas that require the permit, you can open carry. That's very prevalent and common in Texas and other parts of the country. And there's obviously a lot of question as to what the real value of deterrence there is to that, or how inflammatory you're just going to make yourself.
Yeah, I guess I don't. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's probably just. Yeah, okay.
There's certain elements of why a police officer has a car that's marked and sits obvious in a location where he's going to deter crime. But there's also elements why we have undercover cops in a way too. From you know what I'm saying. So but from a private citizen's perspective, to open carry or to concealed carry, there's a huge amount of difference. We do not live in a paramilitary state where we just openly carry. Like in Israel, for example, to Tom's point a little bit ago, they are openly encouraged and to some point almost required to carry their and to be engaged in an engaged situation mentally and physically at almost any point in their life. But look at the state of the nature of which they live in Israel, though, too.
Yeah.
And also other parts of the world as well. That we do live in a civilized society here.
We do.
So at least we like to think we do. That's why I don't think
we were talking about Detroit a little bit ago.
And isn't Chicago the same way?
Oh, Chicago's horrible. I mean, and when they
have a ban on guns in Chicago when they have the highest guns,
because the only ones that have them are the cops and the hoodlums.
Yep.
And but if in an environment where a criminal type, whether they're talking about a home break-in or a carjacking or any of these kind of things, if they have a reasonable expectation that the person that they're going to break into the house, or like the guy that was in the American Sniper.
Yeah.
Two guys tried to carjack him down in Texas years ago when he was alive, obviously. But, what a poor choice, because he ended up shooting both of them dead right as they tried to carjack him. If they've got a reasonable expectation, you don't have as much crime.
Absolutely.
And I want to push that point a little bit more. If we have an armed citizenry, that's one of the reasons back in the day that they thought that an actual land invasion by the Japanese or the Germans was very unlikely, because we had a high rate of our citizenry that was armed, and it was very difficult for a foreign invader to come in and do a land invasion.
Absolutely, and all the way back to even to the early '90s movie of Red Dawn, if you will. I mean, that's been a very real, that's been a very credible threat to the world about the citizenry of the United States. And your point is well taken. There is statistic after statistic. I can we can pull up several on my phone right now that shows at places where there's a higher per capita of armed citizenry that the crime rate is down in all violent crime and petty crime, you name it. If there's a reasonable expectation, and I think that there was a point at that time in our lifetime in this country for sure, and that's really just not the case anymore, unfortunately.
Why don't we make sure that that's reported in the media?
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't make for good sensational news. We could flood. There's plenty of news stream feeds out there that report this type of information. The family that I just met last week in my shop that was violently invaded in their home just out in Grinnell 10 days ago, that did not even make the local news, to my knowledge. Now, I don't consume a lot of media. I'm a small business guy working 32 hours a day, but they overwhelmingly, that did not make the news. There was nothing we heard about this. And if he didn't have an armed response, his family would have most likely been in jeopardy before the police could have arrived locally.
Down in Osceola, same thing. He was able to shoot the guy that had kidnapped him. You're right. It doesn't make, because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. Doesn't fit the media's narrative.
Tom Coates, my co-host. Thanks for being here, Tom. Tom Hudson, the owner of CrossroadsShooting.com. I'd encourage you to check it out, especially if you're interested in protection or learning how to fire and carry a gun legally. I will see you tomorrow. Until then, do me a favor. You know what I'm going to say. Find somebody you need to forgive. Forgive them, because as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you in church.